Hey guys, Conrad Craft here. So happy that you've joined me today, because today I get to keep my promise and start us out on the Jumbo Chess Set series. This series is going to cover every step that I went through in this project, from roughing out the lumber to the final finish. So if you want to watch this and the rest of the videos coming up, go ahead and hit the subscribe button over there and the bell notification symbols beside it so that you're notified as I upload these videos one by one. Now I start with roughing out the lumber and gluing up the laminations for the pieces as well as the board. I'm using African mahogany and soft maple for this project. That's what we're going to do today, so let's get to it. Alright, so we've got our material cut down. I'm going to now glue up these blanks. All this maple and this mahogany over here. These are going to turn into the pieces. I'm going to turn these on the lathe, but before I do that, because I need pieces that are almost 3 inches by 3 inches by like 7 inches tall, 3 inches wide, 3 inches thick, 7 inches tall, I need to laminate these up to give me the thickness I need for the blank that I'm going to turn, all the blanks that I'm going to turn. This is going to be the material for the chessboard itself. These are 3-inch squares that I'm going to be making. So that's what I'm doing next. Alright, so I had to go teach a music lesson real quick. Had some dinner, that was good. Now it's nighttime, as you can see. And I'm about to glue up my chessboard blanks. This is the first step, glue up. Once you rip your pieces once to the width that you want your squares to be, when you line them up in stripes, you glue them up, let them cure overnight, and then the next morning you can cross cut. I'm using a Type Bond 2. You can use Type Bond 3 if you want something that's going to be more durable for like hard use and outdoor use a lot of time. This is actually going to get an epoxy clear coat on it, so I'm not worried about it. Type Bond 2 is what I have right now. That's going to get glued up. I also need to cut and glue up the blanks out of my stock material for my pieces. So I'm going to do that tonight. All these have to be cut into their shorter dimensions. But this is going to be roughly the size of the king. It's going to be a beast. And I've got my dimensions for my blanks. If it'll focus, all set up there. So tomorrow I can hop on the lathe and go to town. Got my boards matched up the way I want to. I need to get a new blade for my table saw. I ripped these to their thickness. They burned, but that doesn't matter because this is all going to be sanded down to a final thickness. This table is actually going to have a plywood core in the middle of it because it's going to be an outside table. And so even if I had used really thick material, I just wanted to make sure that there was a lamination of really solid stuff in the middle of this so that there's no stretching or expanding or pulling in weird ways where we might get cracks in the seams and such. So, alright, let's glue this puppy up. When you're making a chessboard and you're trying to figure out how long you need to cut your black and white strips, you should always leave at least 2 inches excess of what you actually need for the width of the board. For instance, this board is going to be a 24 by 24 inch playing surface, but I gave myself over 2 inches of excess because you're going to lose an inch just with the kerf of your table saw blade. If you have an 1/8 inch wide table saw blade, you're going to make enough cuts to almost eliminate an entire inch of material with these cuts. Right, because you have at least 7 cuts that you're going to make. So make sure you leave a couple of inches on your length. It's hard to go back and put more glue in later, but it's put more than you need now. The other reason I put so much glue on is because I'm only putting glue on one side of each board. So there's a dry side that needs to contact the side that has enough glue that it absorbs glue without sucking the glue dry off of the surfaces. So I like to give more than enough glue because I know that there's an entire side that hasn't even touched glue. The bottom side here hasn't even touched glue. So when I flip these guys to face each other, the bottom side is just going to suck up the rest of that stuff. Here we go. Tighten all these surfaces, making sure everything is solid down to my clamps. We're good. That'll cure overnight, and then we'll see how it looks in the morning. Hello again, it's morning. Let's go ahead and break these puppies out. Looks like they kept straight, which is why I put them on the floor here, because there's a nice flat surface. So whenever you're clamping stuff up with these pipe clamps, you need to have a really flat surface to do it on. Otherwise, what you're clamping will probably be all askew. Whenever you are dismounting something from these clamps, it's also good not to try to pull the board up off of the pipe clamps. What I find works best is you grab the clamp and you twist the clamp first. And any glue that was dripping down onto the clamp from the surface of the piece that you're doing breaks away from the pipe. That way the board can easily be lifted off. Yeah, that is straight. Now you could put paper down on top of the pipes as well, which is something that I do sometimes. But last night I just didn't. But it doesn't matter too much. This will be my top surface. That'll get sanded for finish sanding. And this underside, you can see the black pipe. Had I put some paper over the black pipe, it wouldn't have colored the glue that touched it. But anyway, that's all going to get sanded totally flat anyway, so that can be glued to our plywood core for this outdoors table. I think that looks pretty sweet. That's a monster board, man. going to be huge. Can't wait to see the pieces on it. Okay, so now I'm starting on the pieces. I need to cut up the blanks and get them glued up. But to do that, I have a couple steps that I need to go through. This is all 8-quarter timber that I picked up at my local lumber supply, and it's rough cut. So some of the surfaces have nice flat planed faces, and some of them have some obvious tooth marks from saws, band saws, or whatever they were ripped on. So what I'm doing now is I'm just sorting my lumber. This is the mahogany. I'm sorting it based on what has the cleanest faces, and I've chosen 2 pieces, which are the absolute cleanest that I found and the straightest, to be the cores of my laminated blocks that I'm going to glue up for these pieces. The pieces are going to be 1 core block with 2 outside blocks, and the outside blocks only need 1 clean face so they can glue to my core block. These outside blocks are a little bit wider than I need, so I'm going to actually cut off some material from them and save it so it just doesn't turn into sawdust. So I can cut almost ½ an inch off of each one of these outside faces and save that material for more chessboards and other stuff later. Alright, so the next step for these boards is I'm going to hit them with a quick run over with the belt sander to get rid of all the glue joints and all the bumps of glue and stuff that will keep me from having a nice flat surface to run across my table saw. So I'm going to do that on both sides just to knock all that stuff down and get it nice and true. And I'm using a pretty aggressive grit, like an 80 grit for that. And then we'll do the cross cuts and re-glue. One of the things that I've learned about belt sanding is that you always finish up going with the grain. I went with the grain to start with on this, just so I could run down those glue lines. I'm going to go cross grain to flatten and level these surfaces, but I'm going to do it really, really lightly at the end and turn it straight back and go with the grain, because you don't want cross grain marks with a heavy grit belt. Really don't want it with any belt with a belt sander. Belt sanders have a tendency to gouge and to dig, and if you're not moving them smoothly and lightly, they can just be a horrible tool to use for getting something to a finished shape. They're great for roughing stuff down, they're great for taking off edges and taking off glue and that kind of stuff. They're just like a table saw, guys. You just got to know how to use it, because it could be wonderful or it could be horrible, and it's all up to you.
Melody last week, and she said that Katie can use that bicycle that I have. It's in my garage, and the garage is open if somebody can go down there and walk it up here.
Oh, sure, yeah, absolutely. I can do that right now if that's convenient.
Fine. I'm going on to house to unload, but just go ahead and get it and take it.
Okay, where, how far down?
143.
Okay.
Right down here.
Very good. So while I was working, this sweet little old lady from up the street came, and she offered to let my wife's sister borrow her bike to go on bike rides around the neighborhood. So I was going to walk over and get the bike, and I see she's clearing out her garage, and I see the bike, and then I look over and I see one of the things that she's clearing out is this. Never in my life did I ever think I would get to see one of these in real life. You know what this is. This is like one of those old-fashioned
workout machines that vibrates your gut and makes all the fat go away like that. This is amazing. It's a Sears product. I don't know what it's called, but it's hilarious. I can't believe she has one of these. It looks in great condition too. I mean, dang. Oh, this is too good. Wow. You just never know, guys. You just never know. Alright, back to the workshop. Alright, so everything's cut, nice and straight and clean, no tear out, no ingrained tears. This is a good cut. They're all exactly 3x3 squares now, but it still looks like stripes, doesn't it? So that's the next trick. We turn every other one around, so let's start with this one. That is going to be a chessboard fit for a king. So, what I'm doing is lining up all my points exactly the way I want them before I glue it up. And I'm going to make some registry marks so that I don't have to try to look at the joints as I'm gluing it up. Because with this many pieces, the joints, you know, have a tendency to drift left or right, just as you're tightening the clamps. So you can't look at all the joints at the same time, and as soon as you start gluing it, you're just kind of stuck. So I'm just going to go across the middle of some of these squares, and they'll be way easier to see than the joints, because there's going to be glue squishing out of the joints and stuff anyway. So as long as I get my lines to line up in all my different places, I'll be right as rain. I'll be plenty happy with that. So now we can go ahead and glue it up. So with the boards glued up, I've now started to cut my blanks for the pieces. These blanks are a 3-ply lamination of maple, and it will be likewise a 3-ply lamination of mahogany. These blocks are proportionate to the board. Since the board has 3-inch squares, king 6 inches, queen being 5.5 inches, and so on down to the pawns, which will be about between 3 and 3.5 inches high. So I'm going to finish cutting out these blanks by doing the mahogany, and then all this will get glued up and clamped up, and tomorrow I will start turning these things. Alright, so I'm going to go down this and put all my cut lines on, factoring in the width of the blade kerf. And why am I doing one at a time instead of multiples all in a row? Well, it's because I'm going to want to put these on between centers, turn them true and round, and turn a tenon on one end, and then chuck that tenon in my chuck so that I can fully finish the pieces while they're on the lathe, which is going to be the best way to do it anyway. If I had multiple pieces on one blank, if you will, and I was trying to turn them all side by side, one, I'm likely to make a mistake. If I make a catch on one, it could, jolt the piece over onto another one and screw up multiple pieces. Two, the chuck reason, obviously. And three, clamping these up for gluing is going to be a little bit easier to manage because I can use 1 or 2 clamps on all of these glue up blocks instead of having to use multiple clamps across a long skinny stretch, if that makes sense. So anyway, I can just stack these guys, put my glue there and my glue there. Don't put glue here, don't put glue there, but stack them on top of each other and press down with my bar clamps and such for the glue up process. So it's just easier to do it this way, in my opinion. Pawn is done. Time for the glue ups. Alright, I've glued up my blocks and I have stacked them up, clamped them up, and now they're just going to set up and finish drying. Well, good morning. So the blocks for the pieces were gluing up last night, and they are all ready to take out of the clamps and start shaping down. The boards also came out of their clamps They all look pretty darn good. As you can see, I've got my squeeze out glue that I need to sand down, but that one, and then this beast is just great. Really super excited about how well this thing is turning out. And this morning I finished all my large scale drawings for the pieces. So you can see how these pieces are going to be proportionate to the squares. I think they'll work just fine. I may even go a little bit larger on some of those. We'll find out. So now it's to the lathe. I'm gonna take these bad boys out of their clamps and cut off my corners and start turning them. Here we go. So I just turned a tin in there. That's for the chuck that will go on, so that I can turn all these pieces finish turned and not have to sand off little nubs and stuff from the dead center like that. So. Alright guys, I think we're going to stop now. It was a pretty long video, so I'm going to try to shorten things up for the next set of videos that I do. We've got all of our pieces turned to the round, and the next step is to turn them into the shapes that we need and the profiles that we want. I'm going to spend some time on these videos because turning wood is obviously a skill that takes a little time to get good at. And I'm especially going to take some time with the knight because the knight is a turned and carved piece, and a lot of people are intimidated by carving. But hopefully by the end of this series you'll be able to handle something as simple as the knight for this chess set. Maybe be encouraged to take on some more wood carving projects. I love wood carving. I think it's an amazing skill, and it's really an informative skill because it teaches you a lot about the nature of grain in wood. So that's going to be a fun one to do, I know. Alright guys, so until next time, like this video if you like it, share with your friends who you think might be interested, and I will see you in the workshop.